In a worn-down trailer park on the outskirts of Leach, Texas, where rusty tin roofs glimmered beneath the southern sun, lived a 12-year-old girl named Sophie Lane. Every morning, Sophie woke at 5 a.m., not to play video games, not to pick out outfits like her classmates. She got up early to help her mother clean a small bakery where they both worked part-time. Her mother, Joanne, was a thin but strong woman, the kind of strong that doesn't show in muscles but in how she carried the weight of life. She always said, "You don't have to be rich to live kindly." Sophie didn't have many friends. Her school uniform was patched at the seams, her shoes worn thin. At Winslow Elementary, that made her an easy target. She sat in the back of the class, quiet, reserved, but her brown eyes held something deeper, as if they carried songs she only dared to hum in her mind. One Monday morning, the PA system crackled. "Welcome to Talent Week. If you'd like to perform, sign-up sheets are outside the office. Deadline's Wednesday." Excitement buzzed through the room. TikTok dances, piano solos, drum routines. Sophie stayed silent. But that night, after scrubbing dishes with her mother, she sat quietly beside an old cassette player, listening to a recording of lullabies Joanne had made years ago. She picked up a pencil and whispered, "I'll sing that one. The one you used to sing when I was sick, Scarborough Fair." She tore a small slip of paper, wrote her name in careful, slanted handwriting, and folded it into her notebook. The next day, she stood in front of the sign-up sheet. The list was already long. Her hands trembled. Then, one breath. She wrote her name on the very last line. Sophie Lane, singing. Less than 10 minutes later, the hallway echoed with giggles. Sophie Lane, singing? Must be a joke. Maybe she'll sing through a rice cooker. She heard it all, but she didn't cry. She just lowered her head and walked away, clutching the notebook where she'd written every lyric by hand. That evening, her mother found her practicing alone. Her voice was shaky, but clear, like spring wind brushing across a still lake. Joanne didn't say anything at first. She just listened. Then she sat down beside her. "You know, I once dreamed of standing on a stage too," she said softly. "But when Grandma got sick, I left school to care for her. I never regretted it. But if I could see you walk onto that stage now, that would be the most beautiful gift I've ever received." Sophie looked up, her eyes glistening. "Will you come?" "Even if I have to walk there," her mother whispered, smiling. Rehearsal day. Sophie was the last act. "Do you have a backing track?" the music teacher asked. "No, ma'am. I'll sing a cappella." A sigh. Some eye rolls. But Sophie stood tall, closed her eyes, and began. "Are you going to Scarborough Fair?" No mic, no music, no spotlight. Just her voice, bare, honest, trembling. Within seconds, the room fell silent. The music teacher stopped flipping papers. Another teacher froze halfway through a sip of coffee. Sophie's voice was like mist, drifting into places people forgot they had. Soft, raw, real. When she finished, no one clapped. Not because they didn't like it, but because they forgot how. What had just happened didn't feel like a performance. It felt like truth. On the walk home, Sophie asked quietly, "Mom, if they laugh at me, should I stop?" Joanne smiled and gently squeezed her hand. "No, sweetheart, you keep singing, because the world needs voices that have never been heard." Talent show day. Winslow Elementary was glowing. Banners lined the halls. Balloons floated above the temporary stage in the auditorium. The LED screen flashed, "Winslow Elementary, let your light shine." Sophie arrived early, wearing the only white dress she owned. Joanne had ironed it the night before. Her hair was tied into two simple braids. In her hands, she still held the faded notebook with her song lyrics. Her mother stood beside her, pale from the bakery night shift, but eyes full of pride. One by one, the students performed. A dance group sparkled under strobe lights. A boy played electronic drums. A girl in pink sang radio hits through a wireless mic. Each act was met with loud cheers from friends in the audience. Sophie sat alone in the waiting area. No one spoke to her, just sideways glances, quiet snickers. "Get ready, the fairy tale act's coming. Heard she's got no music. A cappella, yikes." Then the MC's voice echoed. "And now, a solo performance, singing Scarborough Fair. Please welcome Sophie Lane." Scattered claps. A few students raised their phones, not to capture a moment, but to mock one. One kid even prepared a sticker to post on the school's internal app. Sophie stepped onto the stage. She couldn't see the crowd, just the blinding lights, but she knew her mother was there, third row, by the window, and that was enough.
She took a deep breath. "Are you going to Scarborough Fair?" Her voice rose like wind over wild fields, gentle, unpolished, sincere. At first, whispers, then silence. The kind of silence that happens when something unexpected cuts through the noise. Not boredom, not pity, but captivation. A teacher set down her pen. An elderly man in the front row slowly removed his glasses and wiped his eyes. Every word carried something more: hunger, hope, nights without heat, and dreams too long hidden. No show, no spectacle, just a child, giving everything. When the final note faded, the room remained still. 3 seconds, then 4, and then applause. Not wild, not forced, but full, honest, real. Sophie didn't win first prize, but she won something far greater. She was finally heard. And sometimes that's all a voice like hers ever needed. Let her voice remind us. True light doesn't demand attention, it simply shines. And then one person stood, an elderly parent near the back. Then a second. Then the entire auditorium rose together, applauding, as if to thank something pure that had just passed through. Sophie Lane stood motionless, hands gripping the hem of her dress, eyes shimmering, but no tears. The spotlight caught her face. She was no longer the poor girl who got teased. She was a young artist, living her moment. Down below, her mother rose slowly to her feet, one hand over her heart, eyes red, but lips smiling. As Sophie stepped down from the stage, a woman in a crisp white blouse approached her. She wore a name badge. "You must be Sophie, right? I'm Clara Jensen, conductor of the City Children's Choir. I came today to see my daughter perform, but it was you who made me stay until the end. Would you be willing to visit our studio for a voice audition? We have a special scholarship program." Sophie didn't know how to answer. She looked toward her mother. Joanne nodded, eyes glistening. "Go, sweetheart. This is the voice the world's been waiting to hear."
That Saturday morning, Sophie Lane stepped into a real recording studio for the first time. The walls were lined with foam panels. Soft ceiling lights cast a golden glow. Unfamiliar, magical. Outside, downtown Amarillo buzzed on with weekend's traffic, but inside that room, time seemed to hold its breath. Clara had picked up Sophie and her mom from the bus station herself. She was in her 50s, kind but with eyes that missed nothing. "Think of today as an adventure," she said. "No pressure, just sing like you did before." Sophie nodded. She clutched her worn notebook like it was a lucky charm. Wearing a plain white blouse and neat jeans, no makeup, no flash, just herself, simple and honest. In the control room, Leo, the engineer, adjusted the mic. He had salt and pepper stubble and the calm look of someone who had heard 1,000 voices. He glanced toward Clara and asked, "This is the kid?" "Yes," Clara replied. "Just listen." Sophie stepped into the booth. The mic was too high. Leo adjusted it to match her height. Clara stepped in and placed a hand gently on Sophie's shoulder. "You can sing Scarborough Fair again, or anything you'd like." Sophie looked through the glass. Her mother smiled softly. She turned to Clara. That same afternoon, Clara sent Sophie's recording to the admissions board of the Emerson School of Music, where she served as an advisory member. It was part of a scholarship program for gifted youth from rural communities. Only 2 students were selected each year. "You don't need to beat anyone," Clara told her. "You just need to be yourself." 3 weeks later, a pale blue envelope arrived at their temporary address. Joanne opened it with trembling hands. "Dear Sophie Lane, we are deeply impressed by your recording. With unanimous approval from the selection committee, we are honored to invite you to join Emerson's Summer Scholarship Program this June in Austin. All tuition, travel, and lodging expenses will be fully covered." Joanne couldn't hold back her tears. Sophie didn't say a word at first. She just stared at the letter, and then whispered, "Mom, I got in." For the first time in her life, Sophie Lane felt like she wasn't sitting in the back row anymore. June, Austin. The sun stretched like gold across shaded roads and ancient oak trees. The Emerson Conservatory stood at the top of a quiet hill, a red brick building with frosted windows painted by hand. Historic, elegant, intimidating. To most students, it was just a prestigious summer program. "I'll sing that one, my mother's song." No backing track, no accompaniment, just silence. And the voice of a 12-year-old girl rising in the soundproofed air. "Are you going to Scarborough Fair?" Leo sat still. Clara folded her arms, her gaze softening. Sophie closed her eyes. Each lyric flowed like a warm breeze, gentle and haunting, weaving through a room built for technical perfection, now carrying something far more human. When she finished, no one spoke right away. Then Leo leaned into the mic. "You haven't had formal training, have you?" "No, sir. But you stay on tempo, control your breath, and your emotion. You don't push it, you mean it. Kid, your voice isn't loud. It's not polished, but it's real." Clara walked in, took Sophie's hand. "Do you know Scarborough Fair is a folk song that's been passed down for hundreds of years?" "My mom sings it a lot," Sophie said. "She says it's a lullaby for dreamers." Clara smiled. "Maybe that's why your voice reaches people the way it does." To Sophie Lane, it was another world, a world she had only ever imagined from the back of a bakery van. She pulled her old suitcase into the dormitory slowly, moving past students in floral dresses, embroidered backpacks, designer shoes. Some were from New York, some from San Francisco. Some had voice coaches since they were 7. Sophie had none of that. She had never studied music theory. She still carried her notebook, handwritten lyrics tucked inside like treasure. That evening, under the conservatory's domed hall, the orientation began. And there, standing on stage in a navy blazer, reading from a simple note card, was the woman who had changed her life, Clara Jensen. And then one person stood, an elderly parent, then another, and then the entire auditorium rose together, applauding, not for perfection, but for something pure that had just passed through. Sophie stood still, hands gripping the hem of her dress, eyes shimmering, but no tears fell. The spotlight lit her face. She was no longer the girl from the trailer park who got teased for humming in the lunch line. She was a young artist, living her dream. Down below, her mother rose slowly to her feet, one hand over her heart, eyes red, lips smiling. After the performance, just as Sophie stepped down from the stage, a woman in a white blouse with a name badge approached her. "You must be Sophie, right? I'm Clara Jensen, conductor of the City Children's Choir. My daughter performed earlier, but it was you who brought me to tears. Would you be willing to—" The voice that came out wasn't loud, it wasn't perfect, but it was real, like wind through old trees, like someone remembering something beautiful they forgot they ever knew. When Sophie finished, the control room stayed quiet for a moment. Leo finally leaned in. "You've had no vocal training?" "No, sir." "And yet you hold tempo, control your breath, and your emotion? It's natural. That's rare." Clara smiled, stepping back into the booth. "Did you know Scarborough Fair is a folk song that's hundreds of years old? My mom says it's a lullaby for dreamers." Clara nodded. "Then maybe that's why your voice reaches people the way it does." That same afternoon, Clara sent Sophie's recording to the admissions board at Emerson School of Music, a prestigious conservatory with a special summer program for rural talent. 3 weeks later, a letter arrives. Joanne opened the envelope with trembling hands. "Dear Sophie Lane, we were deeply moved by your submission. With unanimous approval, we are honored to invite you to Emerson's Summer Scholarship Program this June in Austin. All tuition, travel, and lodging expenses will be fully covered." Joanne wept. Sophie just stared at the letter before whispering, "Mom, I got in." Scene: Emerson Conservatory, June. Austin blazed gold under a summer sun. Emerson stood atop a hill, red brick, glass windows, hand-painted with musical notes. For some, this program was just another line on a resume. For Sophie Lane, it was a world she never imagined she'd enter. She pulled her old suitcase across the campus courtyard, surrounded by classmates in designer shoes and embroidered backpacks. Some had vocal coaches since age 7. Some had performed in major theaters. Sophie? She had a notebook filled with lyrics and a song her mother used to hum during hard nights. Orientation, domed hall. On the podium, Clara Jensen stood. "We don't seek perfection here," she said. "We seek souls that tell stories through music. Sometimes the simplest voice is the one people listen to the longest." But behind the scenes, Sophie soon felt like she didn't belong. In vocal anatomy class, she didn't know what resonance placement meant. In harmony class, she couldn't read music fast enough. One girl from Boston, Eliza, whispered to a classmate, "Looks like they picked the wrong student this year." Sophie felt like a handmade craft in a high-tech showroom. Late one night, dorm porch. Sophie sat outside alone. Clara found her, carrying 2 cups of mint tea. "I don't belong here," Sophie said. "I'm not like them. I don't know the terms. I come from a place no one knows." Clara nodded. "I was a country girl too," she said. "When I came to the conservatory, people laughed at my accent, my old guitar. But one professor told me, technique can be learned, emotion cannot."
And you, Sophie, you bring a reason to sing. Final assignment, solo performance. Eliza picked a dramatic Italian aria. Another student chose a Broadway showstopper. Sophie? She chose You Are My Sunshine. No music, no lights, just memory. When she sang, the entire rehearsal room fell still. Even Eliza stopped writing in her notebook. You make me happy when skies are gray. She reminded everyone why they ever loved music in the first place. Final night, Willow Hall Auditorium. Rain tapped gently on the roof. Inside, 500 people waited. Sophie wore a light blue dress, stitched from 2 blouses by a kind schoolteacher. Around her neck hung a tiny sun pendant, her mother's only gift from years ago. When her name was called, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Just an old folk song? Really? But when Sophie sang, the room fell still again. Each lyric held the weight of shared bread, rainy nights, tired laughter. You make me happy when skies are gray. Her mother stood, didn't clap, just stood, hand over her heart. And then the room followed. A full standing ovation. Tears, applause, and silence between that spoke louder than both.
Even Eliza turned to her roommate and whispered, "I was wrong." The next morning, diner. Over pancakes and borrowed time, Clara slid an envelope across the table. "The Academy Board met last night. They're offering you full admission to the year-round program. No re-audition needed." Joanne began to cry. Sophie asked softly, "Can I bring my mom with me?" Clara smiled. "If your mother is the reason you sing like that, then the school would be honored." Years later, televised interview. The host asked, "What moment changed your life the most?" Sophie Lane, now a renowned singer-songwriter, smiled. "The moment my mother stood up in the crowd. When no one else knew who I was, she did. And for me, that was enough." Closing title sequence, voiceover. And so the story of Sophie Lane closes. From the back row to the center stage. From being overlooked to reminding a world what it means to feel. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to help us preserve these beautiful moments in a fast-paced world. We'll see you again on the next journey.